Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. I hope your week is finished up pretty well. As for me, I am very glad that we are through it. I have got a nice ice-cold Asahi beer, super dry of course, sitting next to me, and I am looking forward to getting back into a little Mahoutsukai no Yoru, which on the holy night with you guys, and easing into the weekend. Alright, where's my... There we are. Now here we are. Now we're here together, you and I, all of us. That's good beer. How's everybody's week been going? I hope it finished up well, like I said. A little bit of an exciting... I didn't realize that the new Arknights event was coming out quite as fast as it did. So that was a fun little thing this week. Otherwise, been working like a dog as always, but hey man, gotta get that cash somehow. And I am very, very, very ready for the weekend. I hope to spend some good time with family. And of course you guys as well. Other than that, I've got no plans. Besides getting back into Witch on the Holy Night. Which if you guys remember from last time, that was what, Tuesday? Feels like an eternity ago. We left off right in the middle of the largest betrayal ever of Miss Alice Kuonji, the roommate of our heroine, Aoko Aozaki, having gotten dinner without consulting Aoko or letting her know, which is against their roommate agreement. Which would be fine normally, for the most part, except they are both very powerful. Alice undoubtedly more powerful at this point, so than Aoko, magic users. We also had, as a little bit of a recap, we went through the very end of Aoko showing Sojiro around and coming to the conclusion that he is a sweet boy, but a little bit strange. We got a little bit of backstory on Misaki Town, and we got a very funny mention of Alice seeing somebody, whoever could it be, delivering food in a full-on cat outfit. And with that, we are going to launch right back where we left off. So let's get into it.
この裏切り者だから帰ってくるのが遅かったのね。帰宅部、学校までバス徒歩込みで片道20分のあんたがなんで5時以降に帰ってくんのか考えるべきだったわ。
Unfortunately for Aoko, she had been too out of it to even remember that. She was the one who had fallen asleep.
ああ、ひどい女。そういう時は残された一人のためにお土産買ってくるのが暗黙の了解だったのに。私だってこの前の外食の時はアリスの分も買ってきたじゃない。
It was unknown how serious Aoko was being, but she was visibly angry. She had already woken up hungry that morning, and from the time she was called into school until now, she had consumed nothing but tea. It was a small miracle that her stomach wasn't growling. She knew it was her own fault, but she persisted, wanting to get revenge on Alice for scolding her earlier.
この前ってあれのこと？あなたが都心に出向いた時、夕食にお寿司を食べてきたのに、お土産。
Aoko had kicked a hornet's nest. Not gonna lie, I'd be a little bit miffed too.
何よ、買ってこないよりはマシでしょ。真実は時に隠蔽すべきね。
Alice's icy gaze pierced right through her. Aoko had certainly crossed a line by going on and on about how the sushi circled around the restaurant while Alice ate her convenience store meal. But new things fascinated her, and she couldn't contain her curiosity towards the conveyor belt sushi shops that started popping up at the time. They were nothing short of miraculous. Which, if you haven't been to a conveyor belt sushi place, you should try it out. Usually they've got some stuff other than fish, if, like me, you're not one for seafood, but they're pretty cool either way. It's a fun experience, good with friends. Even honesty can be a sin, given the right circumstances.
わかった。わかりました。じゃあ今回のは前のと帳消しってことでいいわね。
Alice went back to her book without so much as recognizing the question. That is not the face of forgiveness. The fact that she did not confirm it made Aoko anxious.
仕方ない。今日は薬日だし、おとなしく台所に立って料理の腕を磨くとしましょう。
She stood up, announcing her intent to no one in particular.
あ、聞き忘れてた。アリス、どこで夕食済ませたの？
Alice's hand froze on her current page. She suddenly shut the book she was reading and stood up, as if at wit's end. She walked across the drawing room with the book in her hand. When she reached the door, she stopped and turned toward Aoko.
聞きたい。まあ、なんとなく。
Aoko nodded timidly, cowed by Alice's sudden vigor. Alice continued in her matter-of-fact way.
その猫が余ったメニューをくれたのよ。
Oh dear. The cat gave her food. And with that brief response, she left the room. Alright. Let's throw a save down. And we will continue. Actually, I think I might turn up my volume just a little bit. Let's see. Actually, I will turn down. That's not what I want. This is what I want. Here we go. Alright, next episode. Chapter 2. Little Happening of Last Night. Oh, goodness, the beeping is back.
都会は魔界だ。けど、慣れれば割と住みやすいとは思う。
Alright, it didn't last that long this time. Sojiro sighed listlessly. He looked down at the winter schoolyard below, lost in thought. December was written on the corner of the chalkboard. He could not believe 10 days had already passed since he transferred to the school. The last vestiges of autumn had faded with the change of the month. The trees were all but barren, and the ground below them a mat of fallen leaves. Fourth period was classics. An elderly teacher stood at the lectern and rambled on. While he had finally gotten used to the classroom, he still had a long way to go to get up to speed in his classes. Lacking even the basic understanding most students learn in their early scholastic life, it was a battle for Sojiro to keep up. Even if he was unable to grasp all the content right away, he at least tried to memorize everything in the hope that he could make use of it down the road. Which is why losing himself in his thoughts was about the last thing he should have been doing. He would normally chastise himself for daydreaming, but... Troublingly, he was unable to concentrate in class today. Sojiro could not place the source of his lack of concentration. It could not have been the winter in the city. It was much milder than in the mountains. Neither was his part-time job particularly tiring. He was not any more physically fatigued than the average student, so that could not be it either. Others might conclude that it was because the courses were boring, but that seemed off the mark too. Sojiro did not share his classmates' opinions about their classes. On the contrary, he rather enjoyed his class time. No, his frame of mind was not to blame either. Trying to figure out what was wrong only made him more depressed.
いけない。こんなんじゃ気が散る一方だ。
He scolded himself and turned his attention to the chalkboard. The rhythmic ticks of the chalk were sending him into a slumber, but he somehow managed to resist the lullaby. And yet, he he was still unable to focus on the class. Sojiro reflected silently, as was his custom, and sighed inwardly. Just having one of them days. Deep down, he knew the real source of his agitation. The events of the previous night were the only thing it could be. With the chime to signal the end of class, the teacher bowed and exited into the hallway. To see him off, the 30 or so students all stood up from their desks. The clock, which had seemed to slow dramatically around 11:30, now struck noon. The tension seemed to fade from the room all at once. The release from a difficult lesson was the start of a lunchtime, the highlight of school life. Misaki High's cafeteria was not particularly known for its quality of food. Complaints that the quality was below that of a private school went unheeded, and the same unique flavors appeared on the menu each and every day. Private school prices coupled with subpar quality led the majority of students to opt for boxed lunches instead. Good old bento boxes. Sojiro's Class 2C was no exception. The boys muscled as many as 10 desks into what resembled a long dining table. Conversely, the girls divided themselves into smaller tables of 2 or 3 desks with practiced ease, and started chatting within their cliques. Not a single student wasted even a second of their precious lunchtime. Where both sides differed in method, they shared a common goal. Sojiro was struck dumb by the efficiency of the transformation. Even after 10 days, he was unable to keep pace with the rest of the class and remained seated where he had sat during the previous period.
Oi! Kochiko Shizuki!
The voice came from the large makeshift dining table near the window. Holsuke Kinomi was beckoning him over while leaning back in his chair in a way that looked like he could fall backwards at any second. He was regularly shot down by others in the class for being lazy or crass, but his earnest nature kept him from getting on anyone's bad side. Though, something could be said for not being so forthcoming all the time, too.
飯にしようぜ、飯。
Look at this goober. I think everybody has met someone like this. We've all had a person like this in our class or that we've worked with.
俺さ、昨日
I've got
店
a
の
bunch
残り
of
物もら
leftover
いすぎたんだよ。
spring rolls from yesterday.
春巻きだよ、春巻き。それを見た親父がさ、もらったもんはの。
Hey, it seems pretty good to me, man. It seemed his end game was to find someone who might take pity on him and trade him for something better. The two of them worked at the same restaurant, so he was one of the few people Sojiro knew before starting school. He was also the reason Sojiro was able to learn the true meaning of the phrase, can't live with him, can't live without him.
お、いいな。しずきも来いよ。今日は待ちに待った缶詰祭りをすっからさ。
I
つい
remember
に
this.
結婚するのかよ。誰か冷静になった方がいいんじゃないのか。バカ、すげえ楽しいってきっと。そりゃパチモン臭いけど、カニ缶とか食い放題なんだぜ。サバ缶じゃなくて。
This can only end poorly.
やったー、俺も参加する。コンビーフは一人1個。
Corned beef,
お前な、
canned
一
crab.
人で何個も食えるもんじゃねえぞあれ。うまいのは最初の1個だけだって。
Now that's the face of panic. And the face on the left is a poor man who doesn't know what he's getting into.
しずきたちが来るならノルマは一人7個に下がるのか。
ところで木の実の弁当の中身なんか缶詰より硬そうじゃね？
The boys usually pass the time by making fun of each other's lunches, but today they were united against a common foe. A pyramid of countless cans stood in the middle of the table. They had all been taken from the pantry of a certain student's house, and the expiration dates on them had all been scribbled out on a marker.
よしやろうども。各自毎缶きりの用意はいいな。食べるも地獄、残すも地獄。我ら5次元目の授業はないものと恐れぬ修羅となり。食材は下町の何でも紹介、マーケット中山からの提供です。
ヒュー、バカも休み休みイエーイ。
The boys united as one and hoisted their can openers into the air.
ほらしずきも食べようぜ
Regular night at the round table.
缶切りならまだある
Or
からさ
makeshift dining table in this case.
いや君らの弁当の毒味はごめんだって昨日それにその缶詰半分以上賞味期限切れてるだろう
なんだよ釣れねえな
Quite an inexplicably excited group of guys. Their real motivation seemed to spread the pain. But, moved by their energy and conceding defeat, Sojiro got up from his seat and joined them. And before he could...
私たちが釣り上げようかな。しずきくん、あんなの放っておいて一緒にどう？
Ooh, another interested party joined the fray. Seems like Shizuki might be a little bit more popular than he lets on. A girl with short but stylish hair had called out to him. She had also tried to get Sojiro to join the track and field club several days earlier.
いやそっちも遠慮したいなできれば
He answered with a troubled look on his face. On their table was nothing but a pile of fruit Sojiro had never seen before.
なんで？パパイヤとか嫌い？マンゴーもあるし、
What is with the
ヤシの
weird
実だってあるし、
lunches?
内緒だけど、夕張メロンもあるんだから。
The members of the fruit group pumped their fists in unison at that last delicacy.
待てなんだヤシの実って俺食えるもんなの
あマンゴー余ったら回してほしいな
バカ肉食え肉そんなんだから貧弱な
Now
体
that's
し
a
てんだ
man
ぞ
of
お前ら
Gotta eat that meat. Sojiro couldn't keep track of all the voices flying across the room.
わかるのはどっちも破滅的だってことだけだ
That being said, he found it difficult to refuse them outright. His tendency to accept others' goodwill at face value occasionally left him frozen with indecision. Not accustomed to regular human interaction, he was unable to judge when it was or was not appropriate to turn someone down. Someone tapped the lost little lamb on the shoulder.
ほっとけほっとけいちいちここのバカどもに付き合ってちゃ人生台無しだ適当に流しとけばいいんだよほらお前らもな善良な羊を悪の園に引きずり込んでんじゃねえよ
An inappropriately loud voice echoed throughout the classroom from behind him.
副会長
Sojiro turned around to see a boy about a head taller than him. His long hair, while unkempt, had been brushed back, giving it an appealingly windswept look. His attractive features belied the contempt for the classroom his eyes carried. Unlike the perpetually dopey-looking Sojiro, he was an extremely attractive boy, capable of captivating anyone who so much as glanced at him. In most cases, such as a boy's presence would be met with awe and respect, however.
なんだよ副会長様のお出ましかよ
てめえらのバカ顔にはコリゴリだって学食に陣取ってたんじゃなかったのかよ
へへへここは見ての通りボンクラどもが集う貧民街でございますよ王子はほら A 組の綺麗どころとカフェでお茶でもしてればいいじゃない
This guy is a little bit less than popular.
青子女子といい飛び丸殿下といいしずきなんかヤバいことしちゃったのか
First Lady Aoko.
しずきくんは高速違反しないじゃん。ちょっとそれ以外のルール破るだけで。ってことはやっぱり築地くん青崎に振られてからそっちに走ったって本当だったのね。
They continued to give him a hard time. Sojiro could not help but feel sorry for him. The class vice president, on the other hand, showed absolutely no reaction whatsoever. He glared at them with a bored look and simply raised his voice, which, this guy on the right here, if you don't remember, we had not seen him yet, but he was mentioned back in the very start, who was mentioned as one of the class president, or one of the members of the student council.
相変わらず無駄に元気があって結構じゃねえかてめえらそんなに活力たぎってんなら冬季特別清掃班にだって参加できるよなおい今んところ自主的に申し出てるのは全校で一人しかいねえんだ
Looks like he's gonna rope everybody into some work, huh? The menacing growl in his voice contrasted greatly with the boy's well-constructed looks. Both Team Canned and Team Fruit's words were doused like a fire being smothered. This was partly due to their fear of the boy, but mostly due to their fear of the Special Winter Cleaning Team. Yes, the Special Winter Cleaning Team. Joining meant spending part of your winter break cleaning up the old school building and mountainous rear courtyard that had been neglected by the previous 2 student councils. It was a form of legalized torture that could potentially ruin 3 whole days of your winter break. And forget about any compensation in the form of extra credits. No, it was a pointless volunteer work for a student council project. It was practically a miracle that they had found even a single volunteer.
いや僕らちょっと体弱いんでスミッチョで缶詰食べてますね
It's so sad. Just go eat canned food in the corner.
こうやって果物食べてないと死んじゃうっていうか、冬休みはもう予定いっぱいっていうか。
All of the students but one scuffled away.
よし、昼食はやっぱり静かにやらねえとな。1年坊主の教室より2年の教室の方がやかましいなんて苦情。いい加減にしやがれよ、アコードも。
He got a very high opinion of himself, doesn't he? The mob meekly scurried away. Sojiro turned to join them, but as he did...
あ、お前はこっちだ。
Part 5, where Giorno gets licked by Bucciarati. You know the scene. The hand on his shoulder held him in place.
だよ、生徒会応募。人んちのテーブルマナーまで指図してほしくねえよな。
Oh, someone has opened his mouth. Kinomi cursed him under his breath to his friends the second the vice president turned to go.
はあ？上等じゃねえか、木の実。いいぜ。お前が記念すべき2人目だ。
He's claimed another. The vice president must have heard everything Kinomi said, because he gave a thumbs up before figuratively jabbing it in his eye.
はあ？何言ってんですか、あいつ。あれ自主的なイベントじゃん。いくら副会長だって強制はで
Looks
きな
like
い
there's
ですよ
gonna be
ね。
some voluntold going on around here. The problem child of Class C laughed merrily.
そりゃ昨日までの話だ。会長の提案が学校側に受理されてな。本日付で生徒会役員は強制力のある推薦権をもらえたんだよ。特に会長と副会長の推薦は絶対だ。拒否した場合、学校側はともかく。
げえ、それ事実上の死刑宣告じゃ。生徒会マジ応募。
As well as the fact that the idea of a student council being able to press anybody to do anything in school is a foreign concept to me, which makes it kind of funny. Kinomi's terrified shrieking continued behind them as the vice president and Sojiro left the classroom.
お前も大変だな、宗十郎。
あんたも割と暇なんだな、副会長。
The two entered the empty student council room. Misaki High's student council had the use of 2 rooms. One was a large office, specifically made for the student council. The second was an archive room, once used as a preparatory office for math courses. As the latter of the two, the walls were lined with densely packed shelves, making an already cramped room seem even more confined. For this reason, it served more as a private refuge to the student council. The 2 students sat across from one another. Tobimaru Tsukichi. He was the son of the chairman of Misaki High School and the vice president of its student council. Like Sojiro, he was in his 2nd year, and first met the transfer student a week earlier when the task of looking after him was not a huge fan of First Lady Alco, it seems. As self-deprecating as his words were, he hardly seemed dissatisfied with their arrangement. Then again, maybe they have an understanding. He took a snack from his pocket and grimaced at it before taking enough to prevent him from gnawing on it like a piece of jerky.
そうか。 でも犬は良くないな、飛び丸。
Sojiro sat in the chair with a concerned look on his face.
犬がどうしたって？山奥育ちのくせに犬が怖いのか？
そりゃ大抵の生き物は怖いけど、犬は別格だ。徒党を組んだ野犬ほど始末に追えないものはない。
There we go, I think we're back now. Got a little bit of a storm overhead tonight, ladies and gents. So if we're cutting out a little bit, please bear with me.
足の速さも脅威だけど、何より執念深すぎる。
Now this is something that I can speak to a little bit myself. Growing up hunting and around a bunch of animals and working with animals in my younger years, wild dogs are terrifying. Coyotes as well, terrifying. Honestly though, I'm pretty sure they don't have anywhere resembling a problem in Japan like we do here in the States, especially the southern states. But hogs are freaky to deal with, man. And this is what hogs will do. They will chase you as long as they're alive, and they will keep coming. They're like little tanks. It's crazy. Sojiro opened his lunch as he spoke. Inside the bright green cloth, 3 beautifully made triangular rice balls.
ショックだ。を見たのは初めてだ。
それどっちなんだ？
褒めてるんだよ、バカ。
Sojiro was always confounded by phrasing that could be interpreted in multiple ways. Euphemism and subtle sarcasm were often lost on him. He would not live a day in my family and survive. We communicate in 50% sarcasm. That's a conservative estimate, by the way. It was only on rare occasions, like this one, that he chose to confirm what was being said. Tobimaru had come to suspect that Sojiro had a very black and white way of seeing things.
ところで、その固まった小麦粉みたいなの、美味しいのか？
Sojiro stared at the energy bar with a curious look on his face.
まずくはねえ
As
が、
someone who has
うまくも
eaten
ね
an
えよ。
unfortunate amount of
まあ、
hand-me-downs
試してみ
at
る分に
RX
は止めね
bars,
えが。
I am sure it tastes like
人
chalk
間、
and
何事
sadness.
も手間暇惜しむようになっちゃおしまいだぜ。
Tobimaru quickly finished off his bar, put another one on the table, and grabbed one of Sojiro's rice balls. Sojiro failed to notice the rudeness of the forced exchange, and gave the preferred energy bar a try.
なんだか。
It kind of tastes like dirt. Yeah.
違いない。遊びをなくせば人生こんなもんだって見
Yeah,
本だ
what a
な。
ray of sunshine the Vice Prez is, huh? Out of principle, Sojiro labored over his energy bar, cringing all the while. He was both curious of the unknown and loath to leave something unfinished.
今無理に平らげる必要はねえぞ。そいつの利点は携帯食ってところだからな。まあそっちはともかく。どうだ、少しは慣れたか？
ああ、飛び丸や青崎が気を使ってくれているから。
Tobimaru turned his eyes up to the ceiling, unable to handle Sojiro's carefree smile. As absent-minded as Sojiro might have been, his expressions were nonetheless incredibly earnest. It was like poison to someone as self-absorbed as Tobimaru.
だから青崎は来ねえんだよな。
He took a bite from the rice ball to steer himself away from such thoughts. Though now cold, the rice had managed to maintain its freshness, startling Tobimaru.
ん？いや待て。気を使ってんのは俺だけじゃねえか。青崎なんてお前が転入した日に彼迷惑だから見張っ。
Shit.
なんでそこで君が怒るんだ？
いや、だからだな。お前が学校になれるよう陰ながら見守ってんのは俺で、青崎は生徒会室で全校生徒の弱みを集めて。
Trouble in the house of student council, apparently. Tobimaru stopped himself, realizing how ridiculous he sounded. Sojiro, rightly so, knew it was nothing to get this upset over.
いいさ。青崎に言いつけられなきゃ 知ってるかあいつどうして俺にこんな役させたと思う？
副会長だからだろ。
Just Bucciarati from JoJo Part 5 all over again. Toby Maru's handsome face went dark.
あのな、どうして副会長が転入生一人にかかりっきりにならなくちゃいけねえんだよ。いいぜ。機会があ
Oh,
っ
this
た
should be
ら青
good
崎
if he
も。
goes and confronts her. Well, confronts is a bit too aggressive for old Shojuro there, but, you know. He snatched another bite of the rice ball while grumbling under his breath. There it was again. Rice grains that were just dry enough to be fresh and tender in the mouth. A morsel that betrayed its humble description, which must have been delicately molded by a master chef rather than haphazardly clumped into a ball.
そして何よりこの塩加減。
Here's the Food Wars food gasm at it.
厳妙な醤油加減はどうだ。食欲をそそるどころか脳を食欲だけにするような。
飛び丸、思ってることが口に出てるみたいだけど。
あ、いや、それほどのショックだったってわけだ。
I get it though. Every now and then you have something that's so well cooked. You know what? This changed my life. It's only natural to inquire about the unexpectedly delicious bite. And he should also, well, Sojiro should be inquiring about the unexpectedly strange nickname of Sanaji. He had been nibbling around the edges and had not yet reached its center.
ああ、それはイナゴ。
ありえねえ。
The vice president choked on his cough. He had assumed that Sojiro would prefer earthy ingredients instead of seafood on account of his mountain life, but he never expected he would use grasshoppers.
くそ。
That's
食う
disgusting.
前に言えよな。
Growing up around
信じら
thumpers?
れねえぐらいうま
man.
いと思っちまったじゃねえ。
That'd be gross.
今のは嘘だよ。
They locked eyes for a moment.
本当は鮭。いくらなんでもイナゴはね。
おお、そうだよな。
Just pulling his leg a little bit.
こんな都会で身の締まったイナゴが手に入るもんか。
Fresh grasshoppers. As curious as those words were, Tobimaru decided to let them go. Probably for the best for his
どっちに
health.
しても冗談きついぜ。危うく吐き出すところだったじゃねえか。らしくねえぞ、宗十郎。
君が青崎の悪口を言うからだ。
Oh, standing up for old girl Awazaki, huh? Look at that face. Look at that pouty face. Sojiro closed his eyes as he continued to chew on his rice ball. Tobimaru watched incredulously as Sojiro made no attempt to hide his disapproval.
おい、今のはさすがに聞き捨てならねえぞ。俺が青崎の悪口を言ったから。
Boy likes Aoko a little bit, huh? Sojiro continued chewing. Poor choice, by the way. The country boy's silent protest said all that needed to be said. The vice president suddenly looked like he had been struck by lightning.
なんてこった。お前、まさか青崎に惚れてんのか？
No,
そうな
don't
のか？
worry.
そうなんだな。
Our dear little
おい、
Sojiro is
眠ってねえ。
bit of a brick. Tobimaru flew out of his chair and violently shook Sojiro by the shoulders. Sojiro opened his eyes.
そうか。お前は1年前の惨劇を知らないんだな。知ってりゃ、そんなストレートな破滅願望を持つこともなかったろうに。
君の言葉には誤解が含まれてるけど、それは後にする。それより1年前の惨劇って？
Story time. Tobimaru regained his composure and sat down after a moment's thought.
仕方ねえ。この手の噂をするのは
I
好
don't
きじゃね
believe
え
for
ん
a
だけ
second
ど
that
な。
he's not one to gossip. Tobimaru reassured himself that it was in Soshiro's best interests as a young man to know.
あれは青崎がまだ1年の頃の話だ。あの頃はみんな入学したばっかりで、青崎がどんな性格か誰も知らなかった。あいつ外見は文句なしに美人だからな。 そりゃ男どもは狂気乱舞したもんさ。
Little did they know that soon after they would be go crazy for an entirely different reason.
4月5月はもう上を下への大騒ぎだよ。
Ah, freshman year.
あの時ばかりは上級生も下級生もなかったな。野郎同士の牽制、共闘、果ては決闘まで。まあよくも騒いだもんさ。
なんでそんなよくわからない事態。
そりゃ青崎は一人きり、命知らずな野郎は延べ100人ほどいたからだよ。一人一人青崎とランチしても3ヶ月かかるだろ。だからまずは男同士でつまんねえ暗闘があったのさ。
Classic. I respect the play.
まあいい。わからねえならそこは飛ばそう。所詮ま
Into the juicy part.
だよな。そんなどうでもいい戦いを勝ち残った奴らは、青崎はあれでなんていうか相手のなけなしの誠意じゃなくてあれか、
Okay, that's
言い寄っ
respectful.
てくる相手を可能な限り丁寧に断っ
Putting him down
が
softly.
中にはそれで勘違いしちまうやつもいたよ。
There's always one
3年
though.
のある野郎がこれは脈ありと見て
Third year.
青崎に何度も言い多分そいつ頭がおかしかったんだ。今
Incidentally, Tobimaru decided to gloss over the fact that this student was also the former student council president. Ooh, I'd forgotten that little
学
tidbit.
園ばかりか。青崎の家まで押しかけたそうでな。あまりにしつこいんで青崎も堪忍袋の尾が切れたんだろう。
You know what?
ちょっと
Warned though.
口
Don't
にする
follow
のは
people
はばかられ
home.
る
That's
方法で
freaking weird, man. Don't do that.
結
Kick to
果
the face.
そいつは自分から他校に転入希望したばかりか、三崎町からも逃げ出しちまって、青崎も1ヶ月ばかり自宅謹慎を食らった。世に言う血の公会堂事
Bloody
件。
town hall incident.
詳しく知りたけりゃ本人はまずいな。新聞部にでも行け。あそこの部長は命知らずだから聞け。
I, for one, support Alco's move in this case.
その具体的な表現を故意に避けてないか。
仕方ねえだろ。理事長の息子だろうがなんだろうが怖いものは怖えし高校ぐらいは無事卒業しとかねえとな。うちの女子の制服見るたびに規制を上げるトラウマなんて持ちたくねえよ。
Sojiro tilted his head to the side in confusion. Tobimaru had lost him with that comment.
ああいい。それよりなんで青崎なんかがいいんだよ、宗次郎。
He tilted his head again, this time to the other side.
おい、お前本当に青崎が好きなのか？単に胸がドキドキ言ってるだけならそれは恋じゃなくて恐怖だってオチもあるぜ。
He tilted his head even further. What Tobimaru was saying sounded off, but Sojiro decided not to press the matter. All the more because he found many of his own emotions toward Aoko Aozaki to be incomprehensible.
そうだな、おかしい。俺はあまり彼女を知らないのにね。
That was because they had not truly spoken to each other since the day she showed him around. Every time Sojiro tried to talk to her, she immediately got up and left. As fate would have it, they ended up working together that recent Sunday, but made only idle chatter on the way back.
けど飛び丸、君は知らないだけなんだ。時々なんだが、誰かの視線を感じて振り返ってみると、いつ失敗するかを心配して見ている人がいる。飛び丸の言う通り、ただ廊下で俺を見かけて単に監視していただけなのかもしれない。けどどんな種類であれ、彼女の心配は本
What
物だ。
earnest young man? I think we could all be a little bit more
こ
like
こが
him.
一番大事だと思うんだけど、
But
実際
man,
の
is he a
話、
brick?
青崎のそういうところのおかげで俺は助かっていたりするんだ。
His tone was measured and sincere. Tobimaru sighed with a tinge of regret. If not for those words, he could have introduced Sojiro to a more suitable girl with whom he could have lived out the rest of his school days in peace. He never went to such lengths for his other friends. Generally speaking, if it was of some benefit to him, he was unafraid of exploiting another. If they were of no use, he didn't bother getting involved with them. That was how Tobimaru Tsukiji operated. What a dick. Sojiro happened to be the type of person who provided no benefit to Tobimaru, yet somehow sparked in him a desire to help. It was not that friendship was completely alien to him. He just did not have many people he felt that close to. So if Sojiro had really fallen for Aoko, it was not his place, as a friend, to try and change his mind.
やれやれ結局惚れてるやつには理由なんていらねえんだな。
そんなことはない。理由なら一つある。彼女を一目見たとき綺麗だなって思ったぞ。
Classic. Tobimaru's shoulders slumped.
なんだあんだけ恥ずかしいセリフ言っといて、要は外見に惚れてますな。結局見てくれかよ、宗次郎。
綺麗なものに見とれるのはいいことじゃないのか？自分を綺麗に見せる努力をしているんだから、外見から内面を判断するのはそんなおか。
It sounded like a sophism to Tobimaru, but he had no counterpoint to offer.
しょうがねえ。分かったよ。この話はもうやめよう。その字が誰をてめえの女にするか。
Now, Tobimaru was mistaken about one major point during this whole conversation. Namely, that Sojiro was not head over heels in love with Aoko and hoped to go steady with her. He merely liked her as a person. Nobody could have foreseen the massive calamity that would be caused by this simple misunderstanding.
だがよ、
I don't see how
一
this
つだ
could
け
end
忠告しておくぜ
poorly at all.
宗次郎。
In fact, I think it will be quite
青
funny.
崎は喧嘩をした相手だろうと別に嫌うわけじゃない。いい例が俺だ。
He spoke with a pained sigh as if opening old wounds from the past.
そうか。詳しく。
もう昔な、あいつがあんまりに独善的だったんで、半年前の夏だ。1年もあいつと生徒会やってたもんだから、俺も女っつうより戦友って気になっててな。つい勢いで平手打ちをしようと右手を上げた。我ながら4番バッターも角也という腰のひねり。
He had a distant look in his eyes as his words trailed off. Also, throwing one punch is stupid. If you don't fight,
こりゃ
go
完
on
全
and
に
scrap.
敵扱いされたなと覚悟して生徒会室に行ってみりゃ、青崎はいつも通りだった。
Don't do it halfway and don't hit girls.
で、以来あいつと俺は会長と副会長で収まってる。
Sojiro sighed heavy at his story. He then said, with absolute confidence,
今の話を総合すると、君は単にのろけたいのか？
clearly, he had missed the point entirely.
なわけあるか。今の話のどこに甘酸っぱい要素があんだよ。俺としちゃあいつを女として見なくなった決定的な事件だったんだがね。
なんだ、違うのか？
A look of disappointment flittered across Sojiro's face. Tobimaru revised his opinion. Sojiro was something of a simpleton, but there was a quality to him that Tobimaru could not quite place. Also, my apologies if the thunder is loud. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, there is a storm rolling through right now.
とにかくだ。俺が言いたいのは、青崎青子の好き嫌いの基準ってのは普通じゃないってことだ。いいことをすれば好かれる、気に入らないことをすれば嫌われるってわけじゃねえんだよ。
Sojiro answered that he would keep it in mind as he looked to the clock. They had been talking for a while, and lunch was almost
もう
over.
君からの話はないか？
あ？初めからねえよ、そんなの。
Why had Tobimaru even brought him here in the first place? Sojiro tilted his head in wonder, but shook it off to deal with the more pressing matters at hand.
よし。じゃあもう少し付き合ってくれ。飛び丸に聞きたいことがあったんだ。
Ooh, Sojiro has something to ask. What could this be? Tobimaru sat up straight, having never seen Sojiro's face look so serious before. Sojiro sat beside his rice ball and cleared his throat.
実は昨日こんなことがあって。
He spoke solemnly, and as carefully as possible, he recounted what had occurred the night before.
Shizuki-kun, いる?
It was 10 to 12, and lunchtime was quickly coming to an end. Her face popped into Class C as lively as ever, as if it were an everyday occurrence. Aoko Aozaki announced her presence. While Aoko wasn't part of Class C, she didn't let it bother her as she casually entered the classroom. In contrast, the baby birds who had been so noisily chirping while eating lunch quickly quieted and began to rearrange their seats.
どういう意味よそれ?
I think they might be Aoko. Just maybe. She bristled internally before looking around the room. She could not see the male student she had come here to find. He hardly stood out, so she thought he might be hidden in a corner somewhere, but that appeared not to be the case.
有里君、出席番号12番のしずき君は?
Aoko kept her tone professional.
俺?
Still called
しず
him
き
his
ならさっ
highness.
き飛丸殿下が連れて行ったよ。
The boy was shocked that she actually knew his name. One might think that the reason students transferred to Tobimaru Tsukiji by a royal title was because he was the chairman's son, but it was really because he actually acted like royalty. In fact, the vice president was said to have taken a liking to the title. I don't doubt it.
あいつしずき君と仲いいの?
She seemed surprised. The class seemed surprised at her
いいも
surprise.
悪いも築地くんが男子と仲良く話してるのって今まで見たことなかったよ私たち。あ、木の実くんはバカだから別だけど。
Poor Kino
そうだよ
catching
な。
strays out
初
here.
めは殿下もあんまり話してなかったけど、3日もしたら楽しそうに口喧嘩してたもんな。
ま、しずき相手に突っ張っても仕方ないじゃん。あいつ変だけどいいやつだし。
そうよね。いい人だもんね、宗十郎くん。
See, Sojiro's good people. Having recomposed themselves, Class C started chatting again. Aoko listened for a bit before turning around and leaving the class with a later. All the Sojiro talk finished as quickly as it had started. Lunchtime was coming to a close in the student council room. Sojiro, having told his story, was smiling in satisfaction. Tobimaru, still sitting across from him, was frowning.
さあ、感想を聞かせてくれ。
Sojiro told his yarn as best he could. Tobimaru fingered his brow as if he was angry or concerned.
なあ、そうのじ。お前、人をバカにできるほど器用なやつじゃねえよな。
失礼な。
What a rude dude.
器用な方だぞ俺は。
His response only confirmed Tobimaru's suspicions. It had to be one of two possible conclusions. That what Sojiro had just told him was true, or that Sojiro was so tired that he must have been hallucinating at the time. Tobimaru sincerely hoped it was the latter.
宗十郎、率直に言って俺はお前が気に入っている。嘘のない人間なんてのは人間じゃねえ。俺は人間嫌いだからそんなお前さんが気に入ってたりするんだが、そんなやつまで馬鹿げたことを言い出したら俺は明日から何を頼りに昼飯を食えばいいんだ。
学食で食べればいいんじゃないか?
Hearing his suggestion, Tobimaru's face darkened.
分かった。はっきり言おう。それは幻覚だ。幽霊の正体見たり枯れ尾花ってやつだろうさ。それでも納得
No,
いか
boy
ない。
seeing ghosts now, are we?
いい精神科を紹介してやる。
それが君の感想か。よし、ならいいんだ。
As bitter as Tobimaru's words might have sounded to most, Shojiro swallowed them whole.
そりゃ俺だって 神隠しの類だと思ったよ。けど
I was
都
starting
会じ
to
ゃ
wonder
もしかしてそれもありなのかも
that
し
kind
れ
of
ないだ
thing to
ろ
go on in the city.
確かめたかったのはそこなんだ。
That's a concerning statement on many levels. Satisfied, Sojiro finished off his last rice ball and neatly folded the cloth.
おい、すると何か？お前は都会の人間は口から火を吹いたり腕が伸びたりするのが普通だと思ったのか？
Met Luffy.
まあ普通じゃないけど
Well,
特別でもないんじゃないかと
normal.
思ったんだ。
It's pushes within the realm of possibility.
ここは山にないものが溢れている何でもありの場所だ。だから
That his face was as serious as it was made Tobimaro realize just how big a culture shock Sojiro must have been experiencing. Living up in the mountains with no electricity, in a place where the night sky was as it had always been, where humans were just one more organism in nature's garden. It makes sense that those conditions would create a boy like him. The idea of children growing up so pure was an appealing one, but maybe it was natural to forgo civilization when your population was so small. Or perhaps it was so simple a world that excessive knowledge was deemed irrelevant. It was precisely because city life offered him so much that was impossible up till now that he had come to the conclusion that anything was possible here.
安心しろ。確かにこっちにはタチの悪い奴らばっかりだけどな。
I'm gonna doubt that
そんな魔法
statement
使い
there.
みたいな。
そうだといいんだけど
We know at least 2 magicians, alright? But Sojiro seemed unsure, as he should. And on Tobimaru's part, there were things to Sojiro's story that he found hard to swallow. Whether true or not, the incident Sojiro had described was disturbing.
まあ、事の真偽というか、どんな間違いでそう見えたかは置いておいてだ。結果だけ見れば、うちの生徒が夜の公園で人を殺したってこと
Murder in the
にな
park.
る。しかも双方を控えめに表現しても普通じゃねえ。
As a newcomer to town, Sojiro assumed that everyone his age was a student at the school. For better or worse, he was right.
一人は火炎放射器を持って、もう一人は、まあなんだ、なぎなたでも持ち出したのか、刃物らしきものが何メートルも伸びたときた。
Our boy is now a witness to a murder, apparently. I feel that. Been there. Sojiro bobbed his head up and down as he listened in disbelief in Tobimaru's voice. Hearing it repeated by someone else, he could see how someone might think he was taking them for a ride.
正気を疑うな。尋常じゃないぞその話。
宗十郎、お前、実は俺をからかってんだろ。
いや、全く。けどまあ、
Straight-laced and
都
honest,
会に
our
はそんな
boy.
人間はいないんだろなら飛び丸の言う通り、夢でも見てたんだ。ここのところアルバイトと試験が重なって辛くて。
Winter break was just around the corner, and the end of term exams were but a week away. Both were proving to be formidable opponents for
俺
Sojiro.
は基本ができてないから、人の倍程度の勉強じゃ追いつけない。ほら、勉強ばかりしているとノイローゼをするんだろ
そりゃするんじゃなくてなるものだが、まあ、何にせよ、やりすぎ飲みすぎはよくねえわな。試験前ぐらいは
Good
バ
luck
イト
if you
減ら
can
したらどう
manage
だ？
that in college, or high school in this case.
減らしてはいるんだけど
Working
ね。
too hard while also
年末っ
studying
てアル
hard
バイ
and
トを休む
seriously,
人
that
も
can
多く
take a
て、
toll for sure.
その代行も頼まれがちだし。
He shrugged helplessly. It was obvious from his words that he had been busy. He saw it did go down in the middle of the night.
なんだか大変そうだな、宗十郎。
ああ、実はかなり参ってる。とか。
Sojiro nodded with a pained look on his face. What was strange, however, was that he did not look the least bit tired.
泣き言言わねえのは感心するけどな。お前、新郎は顔に出ないたちか？
そりゃ、新郎はどこも痛まないからね。
Wish I had the steel in my spine that Sojiro does. That's an impressive ability to endure. As he answered, Sojiro looked up at the clock on the wall. Lunchtime was almost
飛び
over.
丸、時間だ。
ああ、もうそんなに経ったか。気にせず先に行ってていいぜ。
Sojiro watched as Tobimaru made a gesture that seemed to lament the life of a student council member. His eyes looked as if they were looking at a piece of art and not understanding its value.
授業をサボれる身分っていうのは羨ましいな。そういうの飛び丸が嫌いな手抜きじゃないのか。
そりゃ誤解も甚だしい。俺の欠席は手抜きじゃねえ。
Special permission not skipping, guys. Trust me, bro. Source myself. The vice president angrily defended himself as he stood up. The transfer student merely gazed at him, unfazed.
おいおい、あれだけ説明したのに全然分かってなかったのか。しょうがねえ。まず座れ。いいか、その字。常人を上回る英気と幸運を兼ね備えなが
And so humble
ら
with
座
it.
することなく
with all
精
that
進してきた
talent.
俺でもここを卒業しちまえば裸一貫になっちまうんだぞ。ひでえ話だ。てめえの家柄を活用できんのはあと1年ちょいだけなんだぜ。これの一体どこが羨ましいってんだ。普
Something
通
tells me
一
this
生
guy
続く
will
はず
be
の親の七光ってやつが
three measly
俺の場合は
years.
たった
Yeah, I
3
think
年
this
間
guy
し
will
かねえ
be
んだ
pretty
からな。
alright as long as he
となりゃ
maybe
有効なうち
practices
に
a
使
little
っ
bit
て
of
おかなきゃ
humility.
もったいなくて比べて金勘定するのが嫌だ。たく嫉妬渦巻く。
While he must have been joking, Sojiro took his tone to be completely sincere. He listened as he envied Tobimaru's ability to be so open about his feelings. From his frame of reference, there was nothing he could do but take Tobimaru for his word. When
あら、そんな権利なんて留年すればいくらでも引き延ばせるのに。なんなら協力してあげましょうか。この
the First Lady has appeared, the door to the student council room flew open, washing away Sojiro's half-hearted responses to his friend. This frosty statement destroyed the warm atmosphere of the room. And it also marked the abrupt end to Tobimaru Tsukiji's reign there.
いや、いい。自分の夢は自分の力だけで叶えようと常々思ってるんだ。
そうなら今みたいな恥ずかしいこと力説しないでね。廊下にまで聞こえてたわよ、副会長さん。
Fukaisho-san. There she is. Aoko Aozaki in the flesh. Not missing a beat, Aoko Aozaki stepped into the room. Her dark hair was slightly disheveled as if she had been running. Her gaze missed the sitting Sojiro entirely and was focused completely on the ranting vice president.
頑張れ飛び丸。
Good luck. Sojiro said, "Peace, I'm out. This ain't my fight. You're on your own. Good luck." Sojiro quietly got up to head back to his classroom.
割と薄情なんだな、お前って。
Tobimaru grumbled in front of Aoko.
だって時間がない。
だからそういうのが薄情とだな。
He cut himself off. Aoko briefly shifted her gaze to Sojiro.
時間がないのは私も同じよ。あなたにはいつも振り回される。
Not a complaint. It was her honest opinion.
なんだ要件は総十郎かよ。
安心なさい。あなたにもあるから。
Uh-oh. Her eyes shimmered with a murderous glee. It was slightly different from the more sullen gaze to which Tobimaru had grown accustomed. For whatever reason, Aoko's mood seemed worse than usual.
しずきくん、あなた、走るのと泳ぐの、どっちが好き？
Ah, I remember this. Aoko asked abruptly. Sojiro frowned a little before saying he was fine with either one.
ダメよ、一つにして。
He's gonna get pressed.
泳ぐ方かな。けどどうして？
あなたがまだどこの部にも所属してないから。
A succinct reply. One that left no room for Sojiro to object.
うちの校則読んだわよね。生徒はただ一人の例外もなく、
I
部活
kinda
動に
get
参
it,
加しなく
but
てはな
I
らない。
also kinda don't. I don't get the club activities thing.
正直どうかと思う校則だけど決まりは決まりだから。
そんな無茶な。悪いけどそこまでの暇はないんだ。
でしょうね。
An equally terse response. She was typically to the point, but Tobimaru got the impression that she was expressly trying to keep her interaction with Sojiro short. Looks could kill, man. They stared at each other in silence. Tobimaru stood breathlessly, silent on the sidelines until Sojiro broke the impasse.
青崎は分かってると思ってた。あ、いや違う。きっと分かっているんだな。うん。だからそこが強いんだろうね。
Sojiro stood up from his seat. He walked past Alco and into the
それ
hallway.
明日からでいいんだろ。
しずきくんがいいならね。
He did his best to force a smile before leaving the student council room. While watching the events play out, Tobimaru found himself deeply impressed with Sojiro. He could tell from Alco's behavior that she was trying to get a rise out of Sojiro. Sojiro, on the other hand, didn't react. Heedless of what Alco was doing, he simply went on his way. To Tobimaru, it was hard to believe that Sojiro had not taken offense. From his point of view, Sojiro's poker face had been the performance of a lifetime.
いや、でも何が強いんだろうな、会長。
He looked at Alco, curiously. Alco stood completely still, staring at the wall.
青崎？
Oh, she mad. Oh, she mad. Alco showed no response.
おい、会長。青崎。青子女子。おい、聞いてんのかよ、青崎青子。
さいはね、青を呼ぶな。
Her fury echoed across the student council room. It was a beautiful sound that could be heard into the hallway and made Tobimaru's rant from earlier pale in comparison.
やかましい。うるせえのはてめえも同じだ。
Ms. Megaphone. Perhaps her shouting was still ringing in his ears, or he was just the type to answer with a shout, but he shot back
そん
reflectively.
なんだから男の一人もできねえんだよ、お前は。ほら、目覚めたか？
別にあなたの声は聞こえてた。煩わしかったから無視してただけよ。黙らせるの面倒だし。
てめえな、俺はカカなんかか、おい。
Probably a poor question there, Tobimaru.
コミュニケーションが成立しない点で言えば、あっちのがまだ上品よね。
Poor answer befitting the poor question. Let's move on.
その心は？
Oh no, you're asking
お
poor
互い
questions
何を
again.
言ってるかわからない。意味のない会話なら、仰せみたいなものでしょ。
Based on that statement, Alco must have been under the assumption that dating was the act of two lovers whispering nonsense to each other.
問題は、お前にとって意味のある会話ってのがどの程度の価値かってことだが、いつになくきついじゃねえか、青崎。
She is in a bit of a mood, isn't she?
今愛嬌を振りまける状況じゃないのよ。
不思議だ。この2年間で青崎の愛嬌なんてものは見たことがないんだが。
飛び丸のいない時に振りまいてたの。
Just not when you're in the same room.
そうかよ。
That's good. I'll have to use that
やっぱり
sometime.
あの時のこと恨んでるんだろ。生徒会長さんはよ。
There was only one thing that Tobimaru could be talking about. The incident that occurred in the student council room this past summer.
ずいぶんと昔の話じゃないそれ。そんなどうでもいいことに容量を使っちゃもったいないわよ。ただでさえ脳の覚醒部分が少ないの
She
に。
is on one today. She's letting him have it. As the conversation wore on, Alco's murderous aura began to fade, and her sharp gaze gave way to a calmer demeanor rarely seen from her. It was quite possible that nobody besides Tobimaru had ever seen this side of her at school before.
ご忠告どうも。 俺だってあんなことは忘れてよ。
I like their interactions.
さっきその字がバカなこ
Like
と
they
言い
get
やが
each
る
other,
から
but slightly viperous at the same time. I like it. It's fun.
くそ、考えてみりゃ場所まで一緒じゃねえか。
Despite his ranting, his face betrayed a touch of nostalgia. Alco, on the other hand, was scowling.
ちょっと待って、あの話彼にしたの？
ああ、俺がてめえになんで会長になんか立候補したのよ。あんたは副会長って顔でしょ。どう見ても。なんて挑発されて生涯最高の月をしたところ。
Alco let out a sigh, as if relieved that Tobimaru had not told Sojiro the rest of the story. Even she wasn't sure
あれは
why.
確かにびっくりするぐらいいい月だった。思わず体が反応しちゃったもんね。ところで私そんなこと言ったっけ？
言った。しかも俺が保健室に運ばれたのをこれ幸いと強引に副会長にしやがった。
This lady's brutal. Since that day, Tobimaru had served as the vice president to the person who deserved the role from him.
いいけどな。俺に会長職は合わねえって分かったし、副会長の方が性に合ってやがる。会長なんてやってたら危う。
プライド高い分できることは全部やるからね、飛丸は。会長職に先進するあまり気がついたら優等生になってたあんたも見たかったけど。
やめてくれ、ゾッとしねえ。猫かぶるのはお前だけで十分だ。
Tobimaru shooed Alco away like an annoying pest. It was a typical example of the crude verbal abuse they exchanged on a daily basis, with the wittiness that only two longtime foes could manage.
で、なんでそんな話したのよ。
は？
半年前のここの事件
は。ああ、そっちか。いや、あいつがバカなこと口走ったから。
Uh-oh. He stopped himself before he said any more. Now you've done it, Tobimaru. He knew better than to let slip the fact that Sojiro had a thing for Alco. Everyone knew guys didn't sell each other out like that, even if it was all, in truth, a misunderstanding.
それより、さっきのはないんじゃねえのか、青崎。お前、宗十郎に恨みでもあんの
？7日以上前の恨みを引きずるほど私はお姫様じゃないつもりだけど。
Don't know about that. He wanted to retort that she was more like a queen than a princess. Queen bee, perhaps. But he'd come to know her too well over the past 2 years to dig himself into a hole like that.
恨みはないね。それにしちゃ恋に喧嘩売ってただろ。確かに調子の狂うやつだが、あいつほどいいやつはいねえだろうに。おい待て、なんだその足元のシロアリを見るかのような態度は。
別にあんたまでそのセリフを言うのかって心底から見避け果てただけよ。まあいっか。いいやつ、いい人、結構じゃない？喧嘩を売る相手としちゃ上等だわ。
Good job, Alco, she said casually, having regained her composure.
しないとねって、お前。
Tobimaru could not follow her reasoning at all. Tobimaru was used to Alco's erratic trains of thought, but hating Sojiro for no reason seemed needlessly cruel. His friend's naive and innocent face came to mind, then he blurted out,
けど、宗十郎は青崎が好きなんだぜ。それでも嫌いなのか？
Oh. His vow of silence had not lasted even 2 minutes.
いや、今のはな、青崎。
You've done it. You've done it. He tried to take it back, but it was too late. She had heard his words, loud and clear. All he could hope now was that she could take it well.
そりゃそうでしょ。好き嫌いは誰にもあるし。けどこればかりはね、彼が私と仲良くしたいって言っても。
Stone cold Alco. Tobimaru found himself filled with indignation at how detached Aoko was being.
いや、そんなお友達感覚の話じゃなくてだな。
Brother, stop
そう
digging
いう
this
好
hole.
き嫌いじゃ
It's
な
not
く
even
て
your grave,
そ
bro.
の女
Just
は本
stop.
気でお前に惚れてるって言ったんだよ。
He shouted, his face the embodiment of sincerity. Aoko gave him a blank stare. It was the face of someone who had lost their wallet hours earlier and was only just realizing it now. The first instant of doubt that ushers in the reality of the situation. But an instant is all it was.
で
She answered coolly, as if she had no idea why it should matter to her at all.
出ときたか。
Were you
鬼でも
born
な
in
けりゃ
hell?
悪魔だな。お前って女は。よかろう。聞こえな。
Tobimaru gave up any pretense of masculine solidarity and fired back
いいわよ
hard.
そんなのつまらないもの
She ruthlessly cut him off. Ugh. Thinking of the boys who still harbored unrequited love for Aoko, Tobimaru tried hard to come up with a name befitting of the demoness in front of him.
なるほどねそれでさっきの話に結びつくわけだへえ
Oh,
柄にもなく
the
友達
smug.
思いじゃない殿下ってことは聞くも無残語るも無情っていう私の噂話
She laughed as a fiendish smile adorned her face. Tobimaru repented to God, whoever and wherever he or she might be, forever bringing up Aoko's love life.
飛び丸にしちゃ正しい判断ね褒めてあげるからどんな話をしたのか聞きたいな私
Uh-oh. Now he's dug 2 graves. She was smiling, but Tobimaru wished she'd at least try to hide the bloodlust.
代表作とここでの事件を2つばかり。
Aoko nodded with satisfaction as she listened to Tobimaru's hesitant answer.
こういう時噂話って便利よねうるさいのを追っ払ってくれるからでもそんな話を考えなしで広めたら大変だからこれからは気をつけてね
That's the voice of a threat. Good delivery, by the way, by the VA. Had this been in writing, the chillingly sweet tone of her words could have been signed with a heart. Whether angry or happy, Aozaki spoke in a disturbingly cute manner when she was in a heightened emotional state. Tobimaru took note of this new discovery, aware that it did nothing to get him out of this situation.
ああ、俺も命は惜しいからな。口はもう滑らねえよ。
Thank you, Tobimaru. Finally,
けど
you shut your
青
mouth.
崎、本気で宗十郎が嫌いなのか？
He knew that it was a topic he would be better off avoiding, but he tried asking anyway. The bonds between men, at times, shine more beautifully than a pearl. Amen.
まあ好きじゃないから嫌いっていうわけじゃないけど私が彼のことを嫌う理由は自分でもわからないだからダメなのねきっと
Perhaps to placate Tobimaru, Aoko paused in contemplation before she answered. Giving it a moment without immediately blurting out a response meant that not even he could complain. There we go.
そう
English.
か。まあ、そういうことならしょうがねえか。何しろ、綺麗さっぱり感情論だ。お互い理由もなく好きと嫌いじゃ、手を貸す隙間もねえわけだし。
Thinking that would be the end of it, Tobimaru looked up towards the ceiling and silently apologized to Sojiro. Too late now, brother. However, his final sentence appeared to have piqued Aoko's interest.
待って
Tobimaru answered nonchalantly.
いや、あいつもさ、青崎に惚れた理由がわからないなんて言いやがってな。
Tobimaru was still in disbelief that Sojiro had been charmed by Aoko's appearance, so he purposely left that part out. Thank you for doing something
理由
smart.
はないですって
ああ、なんで俺がいくらお前の噂話をしても無駄だった。天津さえなんて言ってたかな。 あ、そうそう。理由はどうあれ、青崎の心配は本物なんだとか、自分はそれで
You got
は
to
っ
learn
き
how to
りして
shut
ん
your
のは
mouth, brother.
他の野郎どもと違って、噂を聞いても手を引く素振りなんざみじんもなかったってことだけ。
Tobimaru finally noticed the shift in Alco's demeanor. She was scowling at the wall. She glared at it in silence like it was her worst enemy. This continued for several minutes.
何それ
Quivering with rage.
どこかで聞いたようなことばっかり
Look at her go. So great was her ire that the gnashing of her teeth was audible. The irritation seethed until it reached the point that Alco forgot Tobimaru was even in the room. And I forgot how to say his name. Tobimaru looked heavenward for forgiveness, sensing that he'd brought further calamity down upon Sojiro's head.
少しわかったわなんであいつが気に食わないのか
Oh? Do tell Alco. Tobimaru looked away as if to indicate he'd rather not know, but Alco ignored him and began to grumble venomously.
あいつ私が嫌いなやつと言動が似てるのよ誰彼構わずいい人扱いされるところとか妙にふわふわしてるところとかいちいち私の勘に触るところとか
I might be starting to see the parallels. Glancing idly up at the clock, Tobimaru thought that last part just sounded like misplaced anger. And that was that. 1 o'clock had come and gone.
わかった。もういい。この話をした俺が悪かった。
Brother, you should have cut your losses like 5 minutes ago in this conversation and said that.
で、俺に言おうってのはなんだよ。言っとくけど、もう授業始まってるぜ。
え？
授業ってなんでいつ
いや、
お
さっきその字が出てってから、青崎がギラーンって壁に睨んでた時にチャイムが鳴ったんだよ。いいのか、生徒会長。5次元目ばっくれて。
いいわけないでしょなんで黙ってんのよあんたは
She looked like she was on the verge of tears as she shouted and pulled at his necktie. Tobimaru raised his hands in a mock surrender, a gesture reserved only for the true victor.
蚊の方がエレガントなんて言いやがった仕返しだ。思い知るがいい。男の純情を踏みにじったり焼き殺したりするエリート悪魔め。
相変わらず細かく根に持つ男言動には言動で返しなさいよね卑怯者
She tightened his necktie around his neck with a yank. The vice president smiled a thuggish grin, as if her reaction made his victory that much sweeter.
お前の古典が破滅に向かっているのは周知の事実。そして A 組の5次元目は言うまでもない。藤代のばあさん。青崎のこと嫌ってるしな。
Looks like her head's on the chopping block now. Fujishiro had one of the longest tenures at the school, so it was only natural she would be in charge of teaching the classics.
さあ、こんなところで俺のネクタイを引っ張る余裕があるのなら、急いで自分の教室に立ち返るがいい。
And here is the return of the
情
smog.
けだ。別に止めはし
I
ねえ
won't
よ。
even try to stop you. Am I not merciful? What a guy. Oh, that's a good fade.
あんたなんか
I
に
love
は
it
めら
when
れるなんて
the details just go more simple and cartoony. She choked him even harder with his necktie. As Alco put words into action and mercilessly strangled Tobimaru, he saw his life flash before his eyes.
いや、待て待て。本当に死んじまうだろうが。今ならまだ間に合う。10分過ぎたら遅刻から欠席。
She's really putting the screws on. Alco glanced up at the clock. It was still only 7 past 1. Her route was from the student council room on the 2nd floor to Class A on the 3rd floor. If she ran, she could make it.
命拾ったわね飛び丸
Alco clicked her tongue disappointedly. What disturbed Tobimaru was that it didn't sound like an empty threat.
あと放課後ここにいて。頼みたいことがあるのは本当なんだから。
Oh, he got some more work after all. She was halfway out of the room before she even finished her sentence. Finally all alone, Tobimaru closed the open door, locked it, and slumped into a chair.
たくああしてる分には楽しいやつなんだけどよ
Say that again. He leaned back in the creaky folding chair and let out a sigh. The weather outside was beautiful, but the sunlight waned early in the winter. Before long, daylight would fade, and the unheated student council room would grow colder and colder. All the good equipment, like the heater, had ended up in the main office, so he had no choice but to settle in for a chilly afternoon.
こんな天気が続けばいいんだがね天気予報じゃまた雲行き怪しいって話だが
After a somewhat suggestive monologue, Tobimaru's mind drifted. He idly wondered to himself whether Sojiro was an overcast day or a clear day sort of guy. No answers came. And with that, I think we will stop for today. Good little session of us here. I think we made a fair bit of good lord, I've forgotten English. That tells you how long my week was. A good bit of progress into this story. And this will be a good stopping point for us. I, for one, have had fun. I hope you do too. Whether you've watched live while I was doing this, or if you catch the VOD later, I appreciate you watching, and I hope it brings a little bit of joy to your day, because it certainly has mine. Until next time, guys, I will catch you on the flip side, and I look very much to seeing you again. Peace, guys.